The Forever Promise. Prologue. James "Big Jim" Thomas took the ramp off of the four-lane Highway 61 and turned east onto the state highway known to the locals as Riverboat Road. Officially called Missouri Route B and also marked as Business 61, the narrow, curvy road formed the original alignment of the highway from St. Louis to Keokuk, Iowa along the Mississippi River bluffs that line the eastern shore of the Missouri side of the river. Despite the serpentine nature of the route and the fact that he had the short drive through La Grange to slow him down, Big Jim always took the early turnoff that took him up the Riverside Road because it cut a few minutes off the time to get home to his family house in Rivertown. The mid-morning sun was shining bright across the frosty late-fall landscape as he steered his late-model minivan past the new Riverboat Casino on his right. The parking lot was mostly empty this early, with only a few of the hardest-core gamblers hitting the slots so far. Big Jim was glad the sun was over his shoulder, so he didn't have to deal with the bright glare from the now-melting frost on the ground. Thomas stopped at the town's one-stop sign, then drove north past the remains of the old foundry that had been the largest employer in the area before shutting down the previous year. As he drove around the turn and towards the narrow, two-lane bridge, Thomas listened to his wife and daughter as they held hands in the back seat, excitedly talking about something so softly he could not hear. Southbound, a young man driving an old 1970s four-door sedan squinted into the sun distractedly, glancing between the road and the tape he was fumbling to get into the dashboard cassette player. He looked down, found the slot and jammed the tape home. Big Jim Thomas saw the lumbering beast of a car in the oncoming lane swerve right into his van's path. Reflexively, Big Jim jerked the steering wheel to the right to avoid a surely fatal head-on collision. His right tires dropped off the pavement and down the steep embankment that started a mere 18 inches from the roadway surface. The top-heavy vehicle instantly started to roll over, and it didn't stop rolling until it lay top-down in water of the Mississippi tributary creek. The young driver of the sedan looked up and saw that he had strayed into the other lane, right into the path of a minivan. He instinctively swerved right, and once back into his own lane slammed on the brakes. He opened his door and looked around to where the van had swerved off the road embankment and saw it overturned in the creek. He took two hesitant steps, thinking there's no way anybody in that van survived. The young man stopped. He turned and looked around in all directions and saw that he was the only one there. He couldn't be seen by anybody else. This could destroy me, he thought in panic. This could cost me everything. He ran back to his car and used a driveway nearby to turn around. The young man then drove northward a quarter-mile and turned off onto an old farm road west, one he could be sure there would be little traffic on. He then turned off onto other farm roads until he eventually ended up back in Rivertown. The young man was intelligent, and he knew that if there were no witnesses and no evidence that he was there, then he was in the clear. He knew all about the law. Of course,